Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Maddie. Today I am filming a sit-down video. I haven't done this in a little bit since starting my channel. Before we get started, be sure to like and subscribe. I post lots of different lifestyle content, favorites videos, makeup routines, some fashion videos, more of that to come, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. And without further ado, let's get started in today's video. So today I am filming my sorority recruitment experience video and why I dropped my sorority. This is something that a lot of girls I see talk about on YouTube, their sorority recruitment experiences, and I've seen some talk about why they dropped their sorority as well, and I feel like this can be a really beneficial video to girls figuring out if they want to rush a sorority and, you know, the pros and cons, because there's pros and cons to all situations. I think first off, I just want to give some background on my sorority experience and my rush experience too. So I am a senior now, graduating in a couple months, senior at Ohio University, not Ohio State, Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, where Greek life, it's big there, but it's not like, if you're not in Greek life, that's not like weird. It's actually very common to not be in Greek life. I would say it's like 50-50 people being involved in Greek life and people not being involved in Greek life. A lot of people are also not in like social sororities or fraternities, but they may be in like academic business fraternities and do that instead of like a social fraternity or sorority. So I would say the culture there, it's cool to be in a fraternity or sorority or involved in Greek life, but it's not like end all be all. So that kind of just explains like the culture. It's not like the same as like, I would say like a Southern school. So there's that. Also, when I rushed, I was a sophomore, so I did not rush my freshman year. I just felt like when I got to OU, I couldn't handle that on top of everything else. I was just already so overwhelmed with like the new experience of college, and I remember recruitment, for us it's in the fall. I know some schools they do it in the spring, which honestly, if it was in the spring, I probably would have done it in during my freshman year, because I feel like that would have given me a semester to kind of just get acclimated, but it was so soon into my freshman year that I just like could not handle that, so I chose not to rush my freshman year. I decided I would hold off until sophomore year, fall, to do formal recruitment then. So yeah, freshman year I was very normal to not be in Greek life, like I said. I had a very fine freshman year. I can get into that maybe more in a few months if I film a college reflection video, which I'm planning on doing, kind of reflecting and breaking down each of my years at school. So I'll save more of that for when I film that video, but yeah, it was okay that I wasn't in a sorority my freshman year. So comes fall of sophomore year, I knew I wanted to rush a sorority. I signed up for formal recruitment, and I didn't really have like one sorority in mind or anything, but I just knew I wanted to rush. And I do think, I will say, that I think it did negatively affect me running sophomore year instead of freshman year. I think I would have had a different experience if I rushed freshman year, because I think my experience would have been better if I rushed freshman year, because it's a fresh slate for everyone else. And when you're a sophomore rushing in a sorority, it's hard because there's girls there that are your age, but they've been in the sorority a year longer than you, so you don't feel, not that you don't feel equal to them, but you kind of don't, because they've been there longer than you, even though you're the same age. You're not like younger, so you should be seen as equal, so it doesn't really feel like that. So I do think rushing as a sophomore did negatively affect me, and that's on me. That was my choice, so I can't blame anyone for that. But just kind of to give some background, that's how my experience was. So we do it was like 2 weekends. So the first weekend you went to like all the houses the first day, obviously, and then you go to philanthropy round, I believe was the second day. You get invited back to like most of the houses still, but a few you maybe didn't get invited back to. And then the next weekend is the final 2 rounds. I think it's sisterhood round and then preference round. So I'm not going to name the sorority I was in, just because since I did drop, I don't want it to be like a representation of that sorority. I think this could happen to me if I was in any sorority. I don't think it's specific to the sorority I joined. But I will say, I did end up in my top sorority. the one that I wanted the whole time throughout the recruitment experience, that's the one I ended up in. So for me, and that I went in really positive. I was like, oh my god, I ended up with my first choice. It was awesome, and I was super excited about that. I remember even like bid day and everything was super fun. You know, just like it was like there was like food and dancing and like, I don't know, hanging out outside on like the like front like porch of our sorority house. It was fun. It was like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make like so many friends. It's gonna be a great experience. And initially, it is really great, I think, because everyone that's already in the sorority like loves the new girls and loves the new members, I guess we were called. And I feel like being a new member, I was very, and I will say again, like being called like a new member so much, and like you're a sophomore, you're not like this like freshman that just got to OU, like you've been there. It's a little like annoying, at least I found it to be, but it's just a part of like my journey, I guess. And I feel like initially, like I went out with the girls a lot. I was trying to find my big, who I am still very good friends with. I actually, not, I'm gonna be straight up honest, I did not make many friends in my sorority, not many like lifelong friends, but the ones I did make are really good friends. My big and my grand big are two of my very best friends that I made at college. I love them both so much, and I wouldn't have met them if I didn't rush. So I will say for that reason, I'm grateful that I did join, even though I ended up dropping, because I still met two amazing people, even though, you know, the whole thing might have not been for me. So I will say, so yeah, I really had fun at first. I went to a lot of like date parties, a lot of socials, things like that. And they really want new members to come to these things. So I think a lot of the older girls will really make an effort to talk to you, to get to know you, to become friendly with you. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, these girls are so nice, so amazing. And it was great. But I will say the novelty of that quickly wears off. And for me, a few months in, once pretty much like I was initiated, which was like a couple months down the road of like actually joining, you're like officially initiated into the sorority, just the novelty of you being new wears off. You know, people aren't making as much of an effort to get to know you. You know, once Big Little happens, once initiation happens, you're kind of old news. No one really cares. And I quickly realized that. I was like, oh wow, okay. I was like, a lot of these are like very surface level friendships, and I just don't really care to have surface level friendships. I don't know. In some ways, in some like realms of life, they're great, but I was like, I'm paying so much money to be in this sorority. I want this to be more meaningful. A lot of these friendships that I had made were just very surface level. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I wasn't really making good friendships. And I will say too, the other disadvantage to rushing as a sophomore, a lot of girls, there's some sophomores in my pledge class, but a lot of girls your age who have already been in that sorority for a year already have their set friends, already have their cliques, which is fine. And so it's hard for you to find your place when you're older than most girls in your pledge class, but you have not been there as long as other girls your age. And I feel like that really put me at a disadvantage. So I just felt like I didn't really have anywhere that I fit in. I oftentimes like didn't really like have friends to sit by a chapter. I didn't really love going, I felt kind of like awkward going to like socials and date parties and stuff sometimes because I didn't know who to hang out with. Again, my grand vig were great, but just as a whole, I think I felt a little uncomfortable going to big things because I was nervous I would have no one to talk to, and I feel like that's not the point of a sorority. And I also don't really consider myself an awkward person. I consider myself pretty extroverted and outgoing, and I would have good conversations with these girls. They're all very nice, but none of them were going to become like my very best friend, and that quickly became clear to me. So I stuck it out all of my sophomore year. I was in the sorority my entire sophomore year, and it was okay. Like I said, it was like, it was still new to me. I was like, let me give it another year and see where I'm at. So my junior year came around and I was on the other end of recruitment this time. I was the one recruiting new members. And I quickly realized then they want to show a specific image to these girls of what the sorority represents and like what kind of girls they have in their sorority. And many girls did not get to talk to many people during like recruitment. I was one of them. Had very few rounds where I talked to girls and got to like meet new people and be a part of the recruitment process. A lot of my day during recruitment, when I was on the other end of it, was just sitting in rooms and closets on my phone. I also want to say my junior year, I was extremely busy my junior year, and I think that also put me at a disadvantage. I will say, if you are in or interested in joining other clubs and organizations in college, that is awesome, so great. But if you're also wanting to join a sorority, I'm gonna let you know now, it is very difficult to balance it all. So to give some more context, my junior year, I became the president of my marketing communications fraternity. Like I said, there's a lot of academic fraternities at OU. This was one of them. I was in that, and I became president my fall of junior year. So I was the president of this club now of like 60 members. I was also in a sales organization, which is also another like business club there. And I also wrote for our university fashion magazine. So I was in 3 clubs and sorority on top of that. I was also, I forget how many, I think I was in like 16 credit hours my fall of junior year, and then my spring of junior year I was in 19 credit hours. So I was very busy my junior year. I also worked. I had a serving job as well that I worked 10 to 15 hours a week there. So I had a lot of other commitments that I was keeping track of, and it was really hard to balance it all. And I think for me, something just had to give, you know, and I was the president of this club. Obviously, that was a huge priority to me. I love writing for my university fashion magazine. That was like really honestly not a huge commitment. I've been in that club literally since my like first week of freshman year, all the way now to my end of senior year. I was also in the sales center, which was not as big of a commitment as the sorority was. So when and I also was like, I'm not quitting my job. That's how I make an income at school. So I really thought about all those things, and I was like, something has to give because I'm losing my mind. You know, I would dread going to chapter because I would have like no one to talk to or sit by, and it was always just so awkward for me. And my big, who's amazing, the best, she just had other friends in the chapter, and I feel like I always couldn't hang out with her, and that's okay. I just felt like everyone in my pledge class kind of made their friends too, and I just wasn't in on anything. And I think it's because I had so many other commitments that I kind of missed out on just making those friendships, which again, some of this is on me. A lot of it's on me probably. But I'm just saying, if you are in other organizations at college or want to be or have a job, just be prepared for it to have some, like, be prepared to, like, manage your time, because it's really hard to manage your time when you're in so many things. And a sorority is such a big commitment, at least it was for me. Weekly chapters where you really couldn't get excuses. And if you did not show up, you had to pay a fine. Even other meetings too, sometimes that would come up weekly, like philanthropy events, sisterhood events, that type of thing. And it just became a lot for me to handle. So I believe last January, end of January, maybe February of 2020, and this is before COVID, it had nothing to do with that. It was just kind of like crazy timing, which I definitely would have dropped during COVID because you can't do literally anything with your sorority during COVID. I quickly realized that with my marketing communications fraternity, but unfortunately had to switch to completely virtual, except the dues for that are insanely more affordable than they were for my sorority. Like your sorority is like thousands of dollars a year. And if you're not getting those friendships out of it, those experiences out of it, like what's the point? That's what I would quickly realize. So yeah, last February 2020, I remember I was just like, I'm not enjoying this. Like I already mentioned, like I really didn't have many friends. I was paying so much money. I was so busy that I was like struggling so much with that. I also I gained like so much weight last year at this time, over the course of a few months actually, because I had like no time to cook or go buy groceries or that type of thing. Good thing I worked at a restaurant, so I actually could eat like decent food there. But I had no time to like take care of myself, work out, and I gained a lot of weight. And it was just really, my mental health was really struggling from just being spread so thin. And so I was like, I need to give something up. And I just sat there and thought, what's benefiting me the least? You know, my job gives me money. Me being president of my marketing communications fraternity gives me great leadership experience. We have really beneficial like LinkedIn workshops, resume workshops. It's really beneficial. So I knew that Thread and the sales center weren't huge commitments. They weren't really going to make the difference to give up. So that came down to me dropping my sorority. I literally didn't regret it once and never have since. I think I texted our president and told her, and she was super nice about it. I was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. And then I told my big that I was dropping before other people knew, because I just wanted to let her know, because she was and she still is, one of my very good friends that I made in my sorority. And, you know, I think she was sad, but also not like shocked that I dropped. I think I had to fill out something like formally, like send a letter, like an email to our president that she had to read off that chapter, just that I was like formally dropping. And I remember, and this is when I knew I made the right decision, when I dropped, there was, I think, 130-ish girls in our sorority. One, besides my big, of course, she already knew. Out of 130 girls, one girl texted me and was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry to hear that you dropped. And she's another phenomenal person too. I really love her and she's great. Another great like friend I've made. But she texted me like, I'm so sad to hear you dropped. Like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me? Like, just like, you know, a sweet text. But out of 130 people, one girl's texting you. Like, that just shows the friendships you were making. Like, that showed me I made the right decision. The friendships I were making were real, like, sustainable friendships. It wasn't a healthy environment for me to be in, and that's okay. I'm happy I did it, because honestly, not everything about it was bad. And, you know, I did meet a few really great people that I'm still friends with or friendly with. That's great. I also got an insight of just like what being in a sorority is like, and I don't regret it, but I do see where I could have done better and made it more beneficial for me. And I also see where it just was never going to work, where, you know, I understand why it didn't work for me. And like I said, OU is not a huge Greek life school. It's very normal to not be in Greek life. I have tons of friends who aren't. So I think that also was just, the culture there. Like, I'm just not the kind of girl that was like gonna make my sorority my whole life. And again, that if that's like the one organization you want to put your all in, be a part of, like you don't want to be in anything else, that's like great. Like, you can have such awesome leadership positions in a sorority and make such great friends. It looks great on a resume, the leadership experience you can have. That just wasn't what I wanted, and I realized it wasn't for me. And that's okay. And that's not to say also that everyone's gonna have a negative sorority experience. Tons of people love their sorority experiences. Tons of people, you know, it's the best part of their college experience. And I'm not saying you shouldn't rush a sorority. I'm just explaining my side of things, because initially I was so excited to join. I really had a positive rush experience. But even if you have a positive rush experience and get in your number one sorority, you have to put in, not the work, but you have to show up in order to get what you're paying out of it. And I just wasn't doing that. So that is why I dropped. And like I said, if I wouldn't have dropped it last February, I would have dropped in March for sure, like a month later when COVID really hit, because you couldn't really do anything in person. Like, there was no reason to be paying for that. I also just want to say, I did not live in the sorority house too. I never wanted to live in the sorority house. I knew that wasn't going to be like a non-negotiable for me, because I don't really like, I like my privacy. I was not going to share a room my junior year. I had a lease already signed with some friends for a really nice apartment, so I was so excited to live there. And, you know, I don't do well when I don't have a lot of alone time, and you cannot get that in a sorority house. It's like loud all the time, constantly with people. And if that's something you like, I mean, sorority house is for you, that's great. It just wasn't for me. So that is why I dropped my sorority, really just because I wasn't getting what I needed out of it. It wasn't benefiting me anymore. It wasn't serving me anymore. And like I said, that is okay. If you love your sorority, if you have a positive sorority experience, That is awesome. I'm so happy for you because I know a lot of people do. And if you want to rush a sorority, I don't want this to scare anyone from like not rushing a sorority. I'm just sharing my experience. I remember when I was rushing, or right before I started rushing, and I watched a bunch of these videos kind of explaining the sorority process, the rush process. And I know I didn't get too into depth about that. You can watch other videos explaining like specifically what happens during rush. For me, it was just a lot of conversations with different girls on different days. And I just had the best conversations at the specific sorority that I ended up joining, which is why was so excited about it at the time. And on bid day, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be the best thing ever. And it turned out not to be. And I don't regret it. Like I said, it just, quickly shifted from what I expected it was gonna be. I don't want this to scare anyone or discourage anyone from rushing a sorority. If you want to rush, totally do it. It may be like the best thing you ever did. Just this is my experience, and I feel that's worth sharing. I think it's what you make of it. So that's just my hot take on all of that. I hope, me sharing my rush experience and why I dropped maybe helped you decide if you want to rush, if you want to drop your sorority and you're not sure. Listen, it was the best decision I made for myself in college. I've never regretted it once. And the friendships I had made in my sorority still lasted after I dropped. No one like hated me or anything. It was okay. But that is all for today's video. Let me know if you guys want more of these like college advice video type of things. This was just something I've been wanting to film for a while and wanted to share because I think it can really benefit people and, girls going into college and figuring out if they want to rush a sorority or not. It also depends where you go to school. Keep that in mind. I go to not a smaller school in Ohio, but it's not as big as like Ohio State. So I think it just depends on the school you go to too. But that is all for today's video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!